The big challenge in this is, okay, daylight. You can see everything. How do you make the enemy, scary? And really, the the way to do that is the enemy is scary if the enemy keeps on winning.
A Killer Vine book is one thing. When you pick up a book, it's like a willing suspension of disbelief, and you're taken along for the ride. I think that film audiences are more likely to judge and to question and to sort of, challenge in a way. So I think that we sort of came up with a version of this vine that, is based very much in the real world.
It's based in reality. There are plants, there are animals that mimic and that are flesh-eating and that, move slowly and track and are attracted to blood and like all these things.
If you don't believe the vines, then you don't believe the story. I mean, it's absolutely paramount importance to us that people accept the fact that these vines are what they are. The vine itself is able to be picked up on their clothes and on their skin and things like that. So what actually is it? So we had to sort of create this, in a way, sort of create a backstory about how the vines actually interact with the humans and how they get inside their bodies and how they rot their clothes away and rot the tents away and all this sort of stuff. So, I mean, all that we had to sort of talk through and workshop all those sorts of things that the vine actually does to people.
We spent a lot of time figuring out, like, okay, well, how does it do this? And, where does it get its nutrients from? I mean, all of these questions, almost approaching it from a scientific, botanical, perspective.
It was always really a matter of creating these practical vines. A proportion of them, when we get closer to camera, are our handmade ones. So we have a workshop of about 12 people who hand make every single leaf and hand paint and hand flock and hand cast and assemble every single vine leaf that we see close up.
My name's Gary Cameron. I'm the head vine maker, which is an unusual title. Not had that one before. We've looked at lots and lots and lots of plants in the last couple of months. We've ended up very much using the pumpkin vine. This is what we call the mature tendril, this section here, which has all the stems coming off it. Each stem will either have a leaf or a flower and a new tendril growing off it, which is very important in this production because it's always growing.
It ends up actually like growing onto their arms and growing into their cuts and their legs and growing into their mouths and their nostrils and things like that. So the end tendrils themselves, we had to focus in on the design of those things and how they actually physically worked.
The whole point with this, it was not supposed to look like a mean plant. You were not worried about it. It was like a pumpkin vine. And when they first are introduced to the vine, they just climb into it and tear it apart. This was a very early mock-up we did, which was too severe. We went a fair way down the track with this, and then it was decided that, no, it did look too scary, and we turned right back to essentially the pumpkin vine. Through doing lots of camera tests, we discovered that the leaf wasn't looking real because it had so much texture on it. It was looking more reptilian. And this one is an earlier one. It's very rubbery, it's very heavy. And we've actually just kept developing until we got the thickness of the leaf down to, was 0.2 of a millimetre. They're very light, and they move in the wind. And when you brush against them, they're quite natural. So if you look at a tree, all the leaves on it, when the sun hits it, it actually glows from within. It's actually got a reflective nature. And they're actually quite translucent.
CGI does play a little bit of a role in these vines, you know, particularly when they're animated and they're actually doing things.
We'll be adding a lot of things based on the way the actors perform, and then you get that magic moment, you know, where just the slightest little startle, or if we're going to put somebody in a cave and they want to be hit, you know, attacked a little bit or grabbed by a vine. We'll try to surprise them a little bit, and we'll poke them with a stick, so to speak, so that they can actually show a tad more surprise than they normally would.
Pretty much all of this violence is stuff that comes out of people trying to help each other, you know, and it's you know, almost nothing is being done against someone's will. You know, I mean, there's this stuff that happens in the story, and it's, you know, it's like, okay, we need to do this.
Cut some off.
And, you know, do you want us to do this? Yes, I want you to do this.
Cut some off.
You know, it's sort of these decisions that get made that just constantly send these characters, you know, deeper and deeper into, you know, a bad place.
There was much debate whether to go practical or visual effects when it came to the prosthetic work. And there's a little bit of a mix of it on this, but really for the most part, Carter really wanted it to feel visceral and to feel scary, and really wanted to go practical when absolutely ever possible. We have this incredible special effects prosthetic artist that is local to Australia by the name of Jason Baird. Nasty, 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 and you can tell he just loves his job.
We went and got, you know, real lumps of raw meat and just, you know, watched how they moved and sagged and hit the ground. And then we've got to use, you know, we start using all the chemicals and silicons and foams that we have, and mix and match and try and get them to mimic real life.
The classic was Jason came to show the legs to us at set, and they were in the back of his trunk. So he'd open up his trunk and there'd be 2 bloody stumps of legs in the back of his car. So I guess that's the way Jason rolls.
The prosthetics are incredibly gory, incredibly violent, incredibly real. This isn't lit with a candle or a shadows covering. I mean, you see every single aspect of these prosthetics, of these operations, of these, you know, everything that we do. And it's in broad daylight, which almost makes it even creepier, you know?
I mean, we photographed it, and I saw some cut pieces of the film, and there are scenes I just can't watch. I mean, I cannot watch the screen.
I literally have to go in there and pull vines off of these ropey, meaty, gelatinous bone material that's pumping blood, that smells like you've never smelled anything before.
Oh God, I don't wanna, oh, it's so gross, oh God.
It's like, you know, I mean, that's the type of thing, it's like if I had to do that CG, like I'd be like, you know, I'd really have to like dig deep somewhere to find something, and, you know, I'd have to watch films of like lamb slaughter and, you know, all these weird things. But, you know, on this film, on The Ruins, I just show up.
Jeff, get your ass out here. We got some meat for the barbecue tonight, all right.
Stacy, the vines get inside her through her various cuts, and she eventually, you know, loses her mind and has to, you know, they start cutting the bits and pieces out of her. So we had puppet legs for her left leg, which Jeff goes in and cuts out the vine out of her leg. And then he flips her over and cuts a huge piece of vine out of her back. The director really wanted us to, like, in one shot, cut and remove the vine from her leg and back. It was like, well, normally, guys, you'd have a cut in there, you'd cut the reactions and cut back, and you'd have one for the cut, one set up just to cut the, you know, to pull the vine out. And so they wanted it all in one hit. So we had to develop these legs and back pieces that you could literally cut, it would bleed properly, and you'd go inside and dig in there and remove a piece of vine out. And so we spent a couple of months testing that stuff, and it really looked good.
It helped so much when I had like all these prosthetics when I was cutting myself, and they had me on like tubes, like 3 different tubes attached to me all day with blood just pumping for each take. And for me, of course, it was so wonderful to have that there to react to as I'm like digging in my thigh, and like they allowed me to like they put a little hole in there so I could like really dig in there. That was totally helpful.
Stacy, come on.
Touch me!
I shouldn't pick my nose so much. Look what happened.
Dimitri's death, when they blow his head off. It's gonna be a lot of CGI, but they put actual pieces on his face and his head blown out. So when they turn it around on us and he's there with that, it's so much more of a reaction than if it's nothing there at all.
All the prosthetics in the sun that was a treat. I just, you stay still, you get an itch. I had a mosquito bite me there, which obviously is a really wimpy thing to say, but in the middle of a shot, you're sort of...
I still remember reading the amputation scene and being like, this is something that I've never seen and is and it's just harsh and gross, and it stuck with me.
People love it. People love the amputation scene. There's definitely audible reactions in the theater.
Matthias really isn't a great friend of theirs. They met him the day before. And so here they are, stuck in this situation. I can't believe that I'm gonna have to deal with the psychological aftermath of cutting off someone's legs that I don't really know.
This poor guy gets just bashed from head to toe from the start of the film. So we had to produce, obviously a realistic puppet from the waist down for the actor to blend onto him.
The legs are removable. You can take them off, and the groin area and the stomach is sort of almost like a jumpsuit. So you step into it like a leotard or something.
We built a platform with a hole in it and an angled ramp, and where the actor finishes, the puppet starts, and the rest of his body goes through a hole in the ground. So it's very, very simple gag. It's been done to death, but it really worked.
Even to the stomach was a mold in my stomach, so the sight that you see every day looking down at your own stomach matched, and that was bizarre. And the hairs, the right length, the right color in your leg. I mean, it was extraordinary. But it was great. I'd get sort of phantom limb syndrome, where I'd be looking at my foot and I'd be trying to move my foot and it wouldn't move for a minute. And so if it's affecting you that way, then it's got to be good.
And then his individual legs are removable because we had so many multiples of legs to rip vines off, then legs to break, and then legs to cauterize, and that worked really well. It was just basically spritzed cooking oil onto the silicone and then hit that with a red-hot frying pan, and it cooked up the silicone just like flesh. It smelt right too. So these legs here are the cauterized stumps after Jeff comes in and burns all the flesh after he's broken his legs. This is what the actor had attached to him. These legs were the initial reveal legs. These are rigged to bleed, so they've got blood lines coming through in and around the bones. We punched hairs on all of the legs, so they've got individual hairs punched throughout. We had a team of people punching away madly for a couple of weeks because I think we had in total about 10 sets of legs for this effect. These legs are very heavy. It's like, and the silicone's very much oiled down. It's about oiled down at 150% or 120%. So they literally weigh as much as a real leg. It actually has that real heavy feel about it when they get thrown and dropped. The meat is very, very squashy. The dirtier and filthier and bloody they got, they just looked better and better. So it didn't matter how much filth we put on the legs, they just kept getting better looking.
And you can watch from the beginning of the take to the end of the take, just a close-up of the legs smashing, the sawing, the cauterizing of the wound, and it all looks real. I mean, these guys did an amazing job, and it's just so, it just feels real. You don't need to hide anything, you don't need to cover anything, it just is, it's happening.
I mean, as a director, what I hope to do with this film is to make a film that physically affects people. And if it makes you sink in your seat and squirm, great. If it makes you, look away and cringe or puke in the floor, great. I mean, as long as it's a film that people react to physically. There's very few types of films where you can really, you know, sort of get that sort of physical response from people.
Stacey, give me.